Hey, and welcome to Short Stuff. I'm Josh, and there's Chuck, and there's Josh over there, and this is Short Stuff. Giddy up, Chuck.
All right. We're going to go to the late 1970s.
I love the 70s.
The Vietnam War is well over.
Yeah. Well, for America, at least.
Well, that's true. But Vietnamese and Laotian people started noticing over there that periodically there would be a sticky yellow rain when it was really sunny out coming down, and that this substance killed plants and made people sick, especially among the Hmong.
Wow.
Which is to say Hmong, which were people in Southeast Asia who fought with France against the communists since the 1950s.
Yeah, they were mountain people in North Vietnam and in Laos.
Yeah, I think they probably... oh, never mind. I was about to discuss a deleted scene in Apocalypse Now, but we don't have time for that.
Are they the ones that they dine with? They have dinner with them?
I think so. I think there were French and Hmong, but...
It would make sense because the Hmong cast their lot with the French, and then later on the Americans when the CIA showed up. Because remember, we've talked about this in multiple episodes.
Yeah.
One of the things the CIA did is they would drop behind enemy lines and say, "Oh, you hate the people we're fighting too? Well, let's assemble a guerrilla army." Right. And the Hmong fought with them. Well, that led to big-time trouble for the Hmong after the Americans withdrew in, I believe, 1975, because that left the Hmong holding the bag. Everyone knew that the Hmong had fought against the communists, and the communists had just become successful in the Vietnam War. And so the communists turned their ire against the Hmong people who no longer had any American backing. So as they were kind of driven from their homes and to refugee camps across the border into Thailand, they were harassed by the communist government. And from that experience, this idea that something was being sprayed on them kind of took root. This yellow rain that was thought to be some sort of biological weapon that was being deployed by the Vietnamese government. And the Americans took it quite seriously and got their hands on some samples. And in, I think, 1981, Alexander Haig, who was Secretary of State at the time, said, "Yep, it's some sort of biological weapon. We think it's trichothecene, which is a mycotoxin, and we think that the Soviets are supplying it in flagrant violation of anti-biological weapons conventions that have been around since 1925.
You didn't do your Alexander Haig?
That was my Alexander Haig.
Oh, okay.
It didn't come through. The whole thing was.
Oh, well, goodness. Sorry, Al.
Can you do one? Let's hear yours.
Oh, I would just have said something about the Soviet Union like that.
That's Henry Kissinger.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Alexander Haig didn't talk anything like that. I was totally thinking Kissinger. And it's funny, as soon as you said that, I got a mental picture that went from Kissinger to Haig. Yeah. Because I totally remember Al Haig now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
But maybe that was...
he liked to impersonate Kissinger. Everyone knows that.
I'll bet. Yeah, behind his back, and it wasn't very flattering.
All right, so, and we're going to leave that in there even though it's short stuff. I don't care.
That was a classic SYSK moment, my friend.
So,
thank you for that.
First of all, we should point out that this idea that it would be something like that after we had dropped Agent Orange all over the place for 10 years, you can't blame them for thinking something like that is going on. Mm-hmm. However, something kind of smelled hinky in the nose of one Matt Messelson, who was a biologist at Harvard University. And he said, this doesn't really make sense to me. So a couple of years later, in 1983, he got some samples. And he said, you know what's in here? It's really weird. He said, there's a lot of hollowed out pollen that's indigenous to this area. And this would mean that the Soviet Union is taking pollen, hollowing it out, filling it with poison, and bringing it back and dropping it down on sunny days like it's rain. Right. It's a very bad idea. It's very outlandish. It's not a very effective dispersal method. And the concentration of mycotoxins in there anyway was not really any different than samples of leaves and plants anywhere else in Southeast Asia.
Right. Like his position was like, yes, these people are being harassed, but I don't think this yellow rain is actually a biological weapon being supplied by the USSR, that there's something else going on. It's like you said, it's just too outlandish what the process would require for this to be what it was. So he was a biologist, like you said, and he knew enough to know that bees, specifically giant Asian honeybees that lived in the area, actually will eat pollen, but they don't eat the outer shell of the pollen. They eat the protein inside the pollen. So when they poop out regular pollen, or they poop out hollowed out pollen. Okay?
Yes.
So he said, I think this might just be a case of honeybee poop. I think that's what everybody's freaked out about, is it's just honeybee poop. But people were saying, okay, yeah, that's true biologically, but what you're talking about, for something that looks like yellow rain to be produced, would require a mind-boggling number of bees to all poop at once in the same area. So explain that, Mr. Messelson, Mr. Harvard-trained biologist. You can't, can you?
And he said, I will, right after this message break.